And so Afriforum is in the news. Not just news, but global news. But Afriforum has always been in the news. On the ground and in practical ways and small ways building this country. Afriforum is a highly effective civil society movement. It cares for its people, while others do not care about their people, but becomes corrupt and fat cats. Though on paper, officially Afriforum was established in 2006. Its work has been part of the concept of self-determination that is taken from the South African Constitution. The concept of self-determination is constitutional. It allows individuals to pursue issues for their own interests, as long as they do so without impeding other people's affairs. I have had the occasion to interact with most of the Afriforum leaders. As a result of my relationships with these various people, I have come to certain conclusions about them. That they are nice people. My obligation to myself as a scholar is to be honest and describe things as I see them. If my perception is not correct, please feel free to correct my misperceptions. And while you are at it, please remember to do so on rational, not emotional, grounds. Afriforum rose to prominence as a balm to comfort the hearts. I first came into close contact with Afriforum during my daily commute from home to work. At that time, I was living in Pretoria Gardens, which is just about near PPC Cement's construction head office to the west of Pretoria. Around the streets in Capital Park, we had great problems with potholes, and the Tshwane municipality, which was run by the ruling party then, refused to heed calls to improve the roads by covering the potholes. Afriforum came, got their hands dirty, and closed off the potholes. Then we heard stories about how the leaders of the ruling party were angry. Why was Afriforum doing that? They should not do that because they were not the government. I found that very baffling because, all along, the ruling party had straight-facedly refused to act. They would rather loot and steal than do anything for the people. That is what is known about the ruling party. And Afriforum has many things to teach the ruling party. And the ruling party must just shut up, sit down, and listen to Afriforum. Afriforum is perhaps the best civil society movement embedded in the fabric of South African society. As you can see from the scenario I painted above, their help extends beyond the Afrikaner enclave to all of us. So, while the government that has been in charge of this country is becoming corrupt and out of touch, Afriforum is really doing great work. Afriforum truly carries the character of the Boer, the Voortrekker, the Afrikaner. After all, there are an Afrikaner, Boer civil rights movement. So what are the few lessons that Afriforum can teach the ruling party? The Afrikaners do not have oversized egos, and they are not a sentimental people. They accept life as it is without unnecessary adornments. The issue of oversized egos has been attributed to Africans, black people. In cases where Africans, black leaders get into government, they are preoccupied not with serving the people but with inflating themselves, with flashy cars, slay queens, stealing, and so on. In the past, many black American social scientists tried to describe what they called the African personality. You can read their books. I mention a few of these books here: Gardiner and Ovesi, The Mark of Oppression, Karen, African Personality, Thomas Pettigrew, A Profile of the Black American, Franklin Frazier, The Black Middle Class, Gunnar Myrdal, An American Dilemma, The Black People, A Problem in Modern Democracy, Omanini, Prospero and Caliban, The Psychology of the Colonized Person, Albert Memma, The Colonizer and the Colonized. All these books see Africans as a people with largely oversized egos, to the point that a postal clerk will take his little money and buy a BMW. We see this phenomenon every day. The leaders would rather drive a Mercedes-Benz, or whatever car they associate with high-status symbols, than do the right thing. These people often seem pathetic in their infantile efforts to seem important. They are all about appearances of importance when, clearly, they are not important. It is not one's appearance that makes one important, it is what one does that is useful to other people that makes one important in their eyes. My belief is that to be healthy, a person must work for what Alfred Adler called social interest, that is, for the common good of the human community. Those who are pro-social in their behaviors tend to be healthy persons. And that is the reason I admire Afriforum. Let us return to the thought with which we opened. As I said, the character of Afriforum is that of the Boer, their meanderings as pathfinders, the Voortrekkers in the vast, harsh terrain of South Africa, turning bushes into farms and towns that we still enjoy today. towns that the government of the day fails to maintain due to greed, selfishness, and corruption. The Boers were indeed the great pathfinders in their great trek from the Cape. They were hardy and reflected the nature of their environment. They were rough and rugged, solemn and stern, dwelling in crude tents and subsisting by hunting. Hardened by an open-air life, they were accustomed to toughness. Their long walks and meanderings, cutting bushes and making farms and towns, gave them sinewy strength, which enabled them to endure great physical strain. The Afrikaners, in their meandering as pathfinders and voortrekkers, were a defeated people. They lived in a South Africa that the British had recently conquered. They were a conquered people. What nursed their revenge? They would tell their children, "Look, children, the British defeated us, not because they are better men than we are, but because they have advanced science and technology. We must acquire science and technology if we ever want to compete with them. Therefore, we must all go to school and study science and technology. We must work hard. With science, technology, and hard work, in a few generations, we shall be able to do what the British do. We might even surpass them." Thus, these hardy men and women resolved to send their children to school. Going to school and working hard became their mantra. That is why almost all Boer War generals during the Second Anglo-Boer War were men with advanced university degrees, like Jan Smuts, J.B.M. Hertzog, Christiaan de Wet, and so on. In general, the Boer, the Afrikaner, does not countenance laziness. He does not listen to excuses as to why one is poor. He doesn't want you to give him social grants out of pity. He does not accept the thesis that he is a victim of circumstances. He sees himself as in charge of his life. He has an internal locus of control and believes that no matter what the external environment is like, it is up to him to do what he can to extract a decent living for himself and his family. The Afrikaner context from which Afriforum leaders come is one where individuals are expected to fight to the bitter end. That is the culture they have. That is the reason why, if I need things done, and done well, I usually go to Afrikaners and Afrikaner businesses. They understand the need for working hard, for volunteering, and for doing something because it is worth doing. Simply stated, I have a positive perception of these people. Formally, Afriforum is a non-profit civil society movement that was established on the 26th of March 2006. The organization was created to call upon Afrikaners to participate in public debate and actions outside of the sphere of party politics. So what about Africans, the black people? With time, Africans will get their structural issues settled, undertaken technological advancements, and begun to ask to be taken seriously. But as for today, among Africans, the black people, all what we see corruption and looting, refusing to develop their own people, and then turning around and blame apartheid for it. So what I have done so far, I have contextualized the Afriforum into the larger broad Voortrekker Afrikaner movement. I see them continue on as pathfinders and the great trek for prosperity. Further, I have described to you the character of the Boer, the Afrikaner, the pathfinders. And I did so, seeing them with my own eyes, not according to politically correct narratives. I understand why black people in this country are leery of anything Afrikaner. However, in this video, I am not interested in the perennial talk about apartheid. I just wanted to describe the Afrikaner as I see them from a historical and sociological perspective. I am not motivated to apologize to anyone for what I have said. My perception is my perception. I am entitled to sharing that perception. My function as a social observer is to describe phenomena as I see them, and hopefully, that description enables individuals to understand them better than they did before. In conclusion, my observations of Afriforum and the Afrikaner people stem from both personal experience and historical perspective. I have seen firsthand the values of hard work, resilience, and self-reliance that define their character. Afriforum, in particular, has demonstrated a commitment to community service, stepping in where the government has failed, not just for their own people but for all South Africans. While I acknowledge the historical tensions that make many wary of Afrikaner-led initiatives, I choose to judge actions rather than narratives. I see a culture that does not make excuses, does not seek pity, and does not wait for others to solve its problems. This mindset, one that values education, discipline, and perseverance, is what has propelled them forward and allowed them to carve out a place of influence in South African society. At the heart of progress is the willingness to work, to build, and to take responsibility for one's own future. If South Africa as a whole embraced these principles, perhaps the structural issues we face today would not persist for another 200 years. My intention has not been to offend or stir division but simply to share an honest perspective as a social observer. Ultimately, what matters is not who holds power but who is willing to serve, uplift, and contribute meaningfully to the betterment of society.